Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of NEC On the Run, talking men's basketball with the NEC's Ron Ratner. Ron, let's jump right into your weekend takeaways.
Okay, Kyle, let's take a look. 2 weeks to go. Let's see where we stand. Right now, 2 teams have qualified to the NEC tournament. We have Wagner and the Mount have already punched their tickets to the NECBBT, but there are still 6 spots up for grabs. First, the top of the standings. Wagner in first place, Mount in second. Both lost on the road over the weekend, so the Seahawks still maintain their 2-game cushion over the Mount with 4 games to play. Now, interestingly, the 2 teams play on the final day of the regular season, and if the Mount can gain a game in the interim, it potentially sets up a winner-take-all for the number 1 seed, depending on how all the tiebreakers fall out. With that said, Wagner needs just 1 more game to assure itself a first-round home game in the NEC playoffs. Now, behind Wagner and the Mount, there's the logjam in third place. 1 game back, you have 4 teams: LIU Brooklyn, Robert Morris, St. Francis Brooklyn, and St. Francis U. All tied, all jockeying for position for a top 4 spot. These teams all just need 1 win or a Sacred Heart loss to qualify for the playoffs. Now, looking at FDU, they're in a good spot, and we'll talk more about them in a minute. They're just 1 game back of that third place pack at 7-7 in the NEC. And even Sacred Heart made things interesting on Saturday, pulling to within 1 game of 8th place Central Connecticut with a 67-50 win in New Britain. If those 2 teams finish tied, the Pioneers would qualify for the playoffs based on sweeping the season series with the Blue Devils. I mentioned FDU, and there's a team that's starting to heat up. Picked second in the NEC preseason poll, they've had to endure the loss of one of the best players in the conference in Darian Anderson to a season-ending injury, but Greg Herenda's young core is starting to mature quickly. Knights have won 3 straight entering play this week, including their biggest win of the year on their biggest day of the year, beating first-place Wagner 76-69 in front of a national TV audience on CBS Sports Network and a packed house at the Rothman Center. What a great atmosphere it was on the day they retired Rich Conrad's jersey, one of FDU's all-time best players. This was an outstanding game that saw Mike Holloway, the junior forward, tear it up in the post in the first half, where he scored 15 of his team-high 23 points as FDU built their lead. They played some of the best defense I've seen all year, and they actually built it to a 20-point lead in the second half, but as we might have expected, Wagner came storming back behind the shooting of Ramon Saunders and Blake Francis. But each time they started to gain momentum, Darnell Edge had the answer. He hit 4 threes in a 4-minute span to keep the Seahawks at bay, and then made 8 straight free throws down the stretch to seal the deal and keep the Knights in play for a quarterfinal home game. With Holloway, with Edge, who by the way is the nation's leading free throw shooter now at 96%, along with freshman Jalil Jenkins, he looks like a veteran running the show at the point, and the inside-outside contributions from fellow freshman Noah Morgan, this could be a team that no one wants to face in the postseason.
Okay, Ron, we took a look at the standings and your weekend takeaways, but now give me your game of the week.
The game of the week took place in Smithfield. Bryant versus the Mount, and this is the reason why you actually play the games. You have a red-hot team in the Mount in second place, and Bryant, a team that struggled in 10th place. But what an inspired effort by the Bulldogs, and that's a team that's much better than its record indicates. They have 5 conference losses by 5 points or less, and what a nice nucleus they have in sophomores Ekene Naduba and Adam Grant, and now, potentially here, an emerging star in freshman Brandon Carroll. Just 2 days earlier, Carroll had exploded for 25 points and 12 rebounds at Wagner in a career game, and it was more of the same from him on Saturday as Bryant managed to build an 18-point lead with 10 minutes to play after this 3 from Naduba. But Mount being Mount, they made their run. They slowly chipped away at the lead, led by, of course, Junior Robinson. This Junior Robinson 3 with under 2 minutes to play cut it to 3, but Bryant sophomore Tanner Johnson, who was our under-the-radar player earlier this season, he responded with a big 3 of his own on the next possession. But Robinson continued to work his magic. He scored 12 points in the last 2 minutes And as luck would have it, it came down to the final play. Mount needed to go length of the court in under 2 seconds. And if this Chris Ray fling went in, it would have been an all-time basketball highlight reel play. But it didn't. Bryant won. It was their day. Carroll finished with 23 points en route to NEC Rookie of the Week honors, and the Bulldogs kept their slim NEC playoff hopes alive.
Okay, Ron, that was an exciting game from last week, but now give me your plays of the week.
Kyle, let's start with the dunk of the week. Actually, I have two. I want to get your opinion on this one. Tell me which one you like better. First, you have this Caleb Bishop from FDU, this vicious slam against Sacred Heart on Thursday. We've seen a lot from him before this season. But then that same night in Staten Island on CBS Sports Network, Blake Francis to Shaq Scott, the alley-oop against the Bulldogs. What a play this was.
Okay, Ron, I don't want to pick sides, so I'm going to abstain from picking either play, but now I want your play of the week.
As always, Kyle, very diplomatic. But all right, let's go to the play of the week. Junior Robinson. This was my favorite play of the week. All 5'5". Here he comes off the ball to swat 6'7" Mustafa Jones against Central in the Mounts win on Thursday. He hadn't had a block this season. He's had a dunk, but now he also has his first block, the amazing Junior Robinson with the play of the week.
So Ron, not only can Junior Robinson score, but he can play some defense. Now give me your Twitter timeout.
This week's Twitter timeout is a bit bittersweet. We learned this week that Bryant head coach Tim O'Shea will be retiring at year's end. It's been a great run under O'Shea at Bryant. He transitioned the program to D1, and look at all the memories they've had there. Some packed houses at the Chase Center, 3 straight top 3 finishes, and the Joe O'Shea game. You remember the Joe O'Shea game, Kyle, right?
Yes, I do.
You can't forget that. We've had some excitement there. And after announcing the retirement, it was great to see one of his colleagues, Danielle Marshall, the head coach at Central, put up this tweet about Tim O'Shea. And as he says, seeing Tim O'Shea announcing he's retiring, I just want to say thank you for welcoming me into the NEC. You never looked at me as an enemy, only as someone who could help the league grow. I'm going to miss our talks in the summer about recruiting, and enjoy your free time. This is what NEC Pride is all about, and it's great to see the camaraderie between coaches in this league.
All right, Ron, we had 2 players hit some milestones last week. Tell me about them.
First up, Sacred Heart senior forward Davon Barnett. He scratched 2 milestones off the list Saturday when he reached 1,000 career points. On the same day, he also hit 500 career rebounds. Barnett is the 84th player in NEC history to reach 1,000 points and 500 boards. Congratulations, Davon Barnett. And how about Mount St. Mary's senior guard Junior Robinson? He averaged 31 points a game last week, and in doing so, moved up 10 spots on the NEC career scoring list from 26th all the way to 16th. And if he keeps his current pace, we could be looking at Junior Robinson as a top 10 all-time scorer in the NEC by year's end. One more note on Junior Robinson. He was named NEC Co-Player of the Week this week, and that made it 5 NEC Player of the Week honors this season, which ties the all-time record. And if you look at the other players who have done this, Rick Smits from Marist, FDU's Desi Wilson, both Hall of Famers in the conference, by the way, along with Alex Blackwell from Monmouth, LIU's Charles Jones, Wagner's Jermaine Hall, Central's Ken Horton, and St. Francis Brooklyn's Jalen Cannon. Of those 7 players, 6 of them were named NEC Player of the Year the same year they were a 5-time NEC Player of the Week. Will Junior Robinson be the next on that list?
Now we're transitioning to talking about this week. Who's your under-the-radar guy?
My under-the-radar guy this week, a Jersey guy from Morristown, Sean Hohen from Sacred Heart. I really like Hohen's game, and he needs to be good these next 2 weeks for Sacred Heart to keep climbing the standings and snag an NEC playoff spot. He's a craftier passer than I think he gets credit for, and I think a lot of people would be surprised to find out he ranks 5th in the NEC with over 4 assists a game. He's always been a good spot-up shooter, and while his metrics from distance haven't been great this year, he has picked it up recently. Over the last 3 games, Hohen's averaging over 16 points and shooting nearly 47% from three-point range. And in Saturday's win at Central, he had a career-high 22 points on just 9 shots. He hit from distance, and he attacked the hoop. How important is Hohen to Sacred Heart? The Pioneers are 6-3 when he scored 15 or more points in a game, and 5-0 when he has shot 50% or better from the floor. Sean Hohen needs to be big down the stretch for the Pioneers.
Okay, Ron, we'll keep an eye out for Sean Hohen this weekend, but now give me your Star Watch.
Star Watch this week, Deshaun Burke, Robert Morris, sophomore guard. I think first off, when you watch Burke play, you realize immediately you're seeing an elite athlete, one of the best to come down the pike in the NEC in quite a while. And at 6'4", he's one of the best on-the-ball defenders in the conference. He gives opposing guards fits. Just look at his numbers. He leads the NEC, top 30 nationally with over 2 steals a game. On the other side of the ball, all you need to look at is his game Saturday at LIU Brooklyn. How do you guard a guy with that speed and pace who can knife to the hoop and finish at will, then go and hit a step-back three? LIU tried to mount their comeback, but Burke had all the answers, finishing with a career-high 29 points in a much-needed win for Robert Morris. My NBA comparison for Deshaun Burke? How about Donovan Mitchell from the Utah Jazz? The same explosion, the same ability to create off the dribble, and the same ability to wreak havoc on defense. And just look at his numbers. 28 points, 7 rebounds, 2.5 steals last week for RMU. Red hot from the field, shooting 63%. A well-deserved Player of the Week award for the sophomore guard.
Okay, Ron, we've hit everything else. Now I want you to give me your game to watch.
Kyle, there are so many meaningful games on the docket this week. But how about LIU Brooklyn at Wagner this Saturday in Staten Island? If you remember back, the two teams had a real battle in Brooklyn last month. Blackbirds won it on this Julian Batts layup with 2 seconds to play. LIU is one of the teams that matches up well with Wagner, and I look forward to when these two teams face off. Blackbirds have a tough schedule over the next 4 games. They got 2 games against local rival St. Francis Brooklyn. They also play a Sacred Heart team fighting for a spot in the playoffs, so getting a road win at Wagner would be huge. And as for Wagner, 2 wins this week would go a long way towards wrapping up the NEC regular season title. Looking at TV this week, the only national game on the schedule is an ESPN3 matchup on Saturday. From the Pope Center, St. Francis Brooklyn welcomes Fairleigh Dickinson at 4 p.m. This is another game with important playoff implications.
All right, fans, that's it for today's show. Don't forget you can catch all league games live and in HD on NECFrontRow.com. For NEC Front Row, I'm Kyle Turner, and we'll be back next week with another edition of NEC on the Run.